Good morning. My name is Callie Crowder. I work at the Canada France Hawaii Telescope as a remote observer. I graduated from Hilo in 2017 with degrees in both astronomy and physics. I moved to Hawaii specifically because I wanted to study astronomy on Mauna Kea because it's the best site in the world for astronomy. I knew that the university would give me the opportunity to work with the observatories in the future. And I want to talk to you guys today about the decommissioning of the Hoku telescope. For my senior year project, and still continuing afterwards, I've worked with Dr. Pierre Martin on the commissioning and integration of the Hoku Observatory. This project is to replace the existing facility at the summit, as well as make sure the hardware, software, and external instruments all work together. I believe then, as I still believe today, that this is the most beautiful telescope I have ever seen. I knew about Governor Ige's 10-point plan before I started this project, but the telescope had already been approved and ordered by this point. During my project, and still afterwards, we did site testing around Hawaii, trying to find a secondary location that Hoku could be placed instead. Criteria that we looked at was low light pollution, a decent number of clear nights per year, low humidity, a safe telescope environment, and an accessible area. The consensus that we came to was that this observatory needed to be placed above 9,000 feet in elevation. Today, Hoku sits in a windowless room at the university, and it has for 3 years now. This is a waste of money, space, scientific potential, and it's a tremendous loss for every single university and Hawaii high school student who could be using it right now. When I started my freshman year at the university, there were about 20 students there who came in with me. Some of them left the major. Other of them left Hawaii entirely because they didn't have the opportunity to work hands-on with a professional observatory. This makes it hard for any major to not have a hands-on experience. Yes, we did have telescopes that we took up to the 9,000 foot level, but these are amateur astronomy telescopes, and they're not good for a technical level that's needed in professional astronomy. When I graduated, there were only 4 students left in my graduating class. I watched a lot of my friends leave the island because they didn't have the opportunities to work with. I know that my experience with Hoku really made the difference for me in my current position at CFHT. It gave me the tools and the confidence I need to work there. Decommissioning the Hoku Observatory from the summit of Mauna Kea is a huge mistake. The loss of this telescope affects the motivation and the opportunities that Hawaii students need. I understand that telescopes need to be decommissioned from the summit. I just don't understand why that has to be Hoku Hoku means the difference between Mauna Kea being the best place in the world for astronomy and Mauna Kea being the best place in the world to learn astronomy. Thank you for your consideration.
Aloha, my name is Emily Peavy, and I too would also like to speak about Hoku. I am an alumnus of the University of Hawaii at Hilo, where I obtained my bachelor's in astronomy with a minor in physics in 2015, and then this past summer I obtained my master's of education through the same university. My career passion is through astronomy education and science education. And that is what drives me here in our talk about astronomy here in Hawaii and Hoku. The University of Hawaii at Hilo is 75% Hawaii residents. The people who go to University of Hawaii at Hilo are from Hawaii. They live here, and Hoku is the observatory that was put here in Hawaii in one of the best places in the world to conduct science and astronomy in order to benefit the people of Hawaii, to benefit the students who are here on our island going to our university. And as Callie mentioned, it doesn't just need to be for the university students. Hoku is a place that high school students, the people who are here in Hawaii, who have grown up in Hawaii, are able to use the scientific instrument in order to launch their scientific careers and benefit our island itself. And so I understand that telescopes do need to get decommissioned, and maybe on paper, Hoku is a natural choice for it to be decommissioned. But if Hoku is decommissioned, then we, at the same time, we need to be thinking about where the replacement for Hoku, which Callie mentioned, can be placed. I know, as Callie mentioned, there were secondary sites that were investigated. I believe there's one by Hoku that this telescope would be able to be placed so that we can continue in order to provide opportunities for our island students and for our island community in order to embrace the sciences and move forward with a scientific career. I also prepared a letter that I'd be willing to submit as well with some of my thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Heather Kaluna. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Hawaii at Hilo in the Physics and Astronomy Department. I'm here to speak about Hoku and speak to this idea of decommissioning because I agree there needs to be a balance on the Mauna in terms of the number of observatories on there. And so I know that we are in the process of decommissioning our observatory. I'd just like to ask for kokua in trying to take that forward. I think there are other sites that we can have to have exemplary education opportunities through the use of our new observatory. But I just wanted to highlight that there are those of us that are very much keen on supporting this notion of balance, and we're committed to making sure that Mauna Kea is used properly and in a respectful way. That's it. Mahalo.
My name is Davin Vicente, and I'm a lecturer in biology at UH Hilo. I wanted to speak about the Hoku too. So I just wanted to make some comment on that. I feel like with the whole TMT controversy, that the only reason why we've been talking about decommissioning Hoku is because of David Ige's statement on having to remove 5 telescopes from the mountain. And as a quick way to do it, he picked the smallest, easiest one that nobody has a problem with. So I wanted to start off by saying that I disagree, that I don't think astronomy should have been put on Mauna Kea in the first place, but I don't have a time machine. I cannot go back. I cannot remove them. There's no such thing as truly decommissioning an area. I don't think you guys can put the area back to the way it was. Like with, for example, Keck, you guys removed, part of a pu'u, you can't put it back. I think with Hoku it's a very small telescope. I think it serves a higher purpose. If the university is truly about providing STEM education, maybe we should talk about actually trying to save it and not sacrifice it for a research telescope like TMT. So that's something I think you guys should definitely look towards, because it seems like nobody really tried to save Hoku, and Hoku seems to be like, talk to anybody blocking the road. I don't think anybody really cares about the littlest telescope that's the size of a shed, and it seems like it's just a waste. And we keep talking about Native Hawaiians and locals being able to fill these jobs in astronomy. How are they going to do that without education? So I know it's very, STEM in itself in Hawaii is very unbalanced, where you hire people from outside to come in, and nobody's taking in these positions. And like, for example, in biology, I'm pretty sure I'm the only Native Hawaiian, and I'm just a lecturer. So, and like, I look at the mountain and how many people are there that are actually local residents of, Native Hawaiian ancestry, things like that. And I feel like Hoku just became this quick, like, okay, we got 5, we have a number. But it's, it is more negative than it is, beneficial to remove it. So I just wanted to make a comment on that, and that's all.
Letter B under action item, approval of Hoku notice of intent to decommission.
The approval of the notice of intent to decommission Hoku was brought before this board in May of 2016. And during that meeting, and even prior to that, during the Kahuku Mauna meeting, there were a number of people who came forward and were against the decommissioning of Hoku. And so based on the comments and the testimonies that were received on the Mauna Kea Management Board, the board decided to defer taking action to approve the NOI and instructed the University of Hawaii Hilo to go out and consult with the community. So what has taken place in the intervening years is that the Hoku Kea team, led by its director, Pierre Martin, looked at other locations as to where they could possibly put Hoku Kea. They looked at Mauna Loa. They were hoping that they could locate their telescope at the Mauna Loa Observatory, which at the time was looking at obtaining a lease from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to expand its area, but the Department of Land and Natural Resources denied their request. So Mauna Loa was not a location that Hoku Kea could go to. They received an invitation to set up their telescope on Hualalai. They tested it, and as it turns out that the conditions are not good for the telescope. The humidity is too high and could damage the mirror and its instruments. So they've now gone to look at Halipohaku as a potential site. They've done some testing on it. It looks like the seeing value is good for their purposes. It's an educational and also a research telescope. They've talked to a number of individuals in the community about the potential for locating at Halipohaku. So they were from my understanding is they were, Hoku Kea group was told to continue to explore Halipohaku as a potential site. So what we're coming to you today is to let you know that to remind everyone that the telescope has been removed. It was removed in 2018, and that was not really required formal notification of UH to proceed with decommissioning. But removing the actual physical infrastructure, the dome and the siding and the slab, will require a notice of intent to proceed to move with the formal decommissioning of Hoku Kea. And so this is what we're coming to you today to ask the board to reconsider their approval of the notice of intent. Now the notice of intent, as some of the individuals have indicated, arose, the decommissioning of Hoku Kea arose out of Governor Ige's 10-point plan, which requested the university to decommission 3 of its telescopes, and Hoku Kea was one of those that was identified for decommissioning. So we're putting before the board, your notice was given to you for review. We're asking the board to take action, whether to approve or not approve the notice of intent.
Like some of the speakers have already said, and early on, the notice of intent for this particular removal, I don't necessarily agree with. I understand what the requirement is from the governor's office with regards to removing this particular item, but and I know there are discussions concerning moving this to Halipohaku. I concur that this needs to be established. If not on the summit, then at Halipohaku. To take that away from students of the University of Hawaii is just simply not right. We need to establish actions for student participation to continue on Mauna Kea in some capacity. I am generally not in agreement with the notice of intent that was issued back in 2016, and but here we are. The instrument has been removed. Things are moving forward with deciding whether to remove the existing structure and area. It's unfortunate that the alternatives, other than looking for a different site, were not fully explored, at least not in my personal opinion, even though I know others have been working on this extensively. And that's basically just my comment with regards to this action item.
We're eventually going to get to a vote on this, I assume, but I'll go ahead and in the spirit of comments and also in the spirit of a pile-on offer a few perspectives on Hoku Kea, which I'm pretty upset about. We heard a lot of testimony this morning, and unless I'm mistaken, is all in favor of providing this educational resource for these students. And I'm just dumbfounded by the fact that we, the board, and I think it was just Greg and me on the board at that time, Herring was there too, 3 years and 3 months ago, I believe, requested that the motion be deferred for public consideration, and here we are again with this. And it sounds like we've got the same testimony we had with a whole bunch of people back in 2016 of what to do with Hoku Kea. I think why I'm so upset about it is because as you know, the originator of Mauna Kea Scholars, and the program's providing high school kids access to Mauna Kea, I am deeply passionate about the importance of providing at the student level direct hands-on access to telescopes. I'm not necessarily in favor of putting Hoku Kea on the summit. I want to go on record about that. I recognize there has to be 5 taken down for TMT. I haven't heard of anything close to a good reason why it couldn't go to Halipahaku, though. I understand it could be deployed in a matter of weeks if the decision was made to do that. The equipment's there. It's a fairly simple means of installing it, and we don't necessarily have to wait that long. What we're waiting for is a decision in Honolulu, I think, to actually go forward with it, as opposed to money or something like that. So it's just a shame that it's taken so long to get essentially nowhere with this telescope in terms of finding a home for it. Just because these meetings are kind of boring, I brought a prop along with me. I took this out of a telescope that's near and dear to me. Some of you may recognize what this is from. When I was 16-year-old, I ground and polished this mirror. Took me 300 hours to do that. This is the primary mirror for my homemade telescope, and I've used this either on my driveway or up at Halipahaku with lots of high school kids, showing them Saturn's rings for the first time, etc. So when Callie talks about the importance of hands-on experience, so this is hands-on. This is hand ground, this mirror. I'm the director of 2 Mauna Kea observatories, and I'm a direct product of this experience I had as a kid. I can trace it all the way back. So I'm tangible evidence of what was discussed before. If you give students the opportunity, it is transformative for them in terms of the potential for their careers. So to just fast forward, if this does go to a vote, I decided already I was going to abstain, which under the rules, I believe, given that we only have 4 votes, means the motion is not going to go forward. I move that, or I urge that if it is brought forward, that we have a credible plan to deploy Hoku Kea, and HB seems like a perfectly reasonable approach. I feel that if we go ahead and approve this motion to accept the notice of intent, we remove pressure to go ahead and deploy the facility at HB. There will be absolutely no motivation at that point then. And I think, I cannot in good conscience, knowing what I know and being who I am and listening to the testimony, not support the students in this one, and ask that if you do want to go ahead with the vote, that's what's going to happen. If you prefer to defer it, as we did before, and reconsider, as a board, we can do that as well. Either way, it's not going to go ahead today.
I think when several references had been made to Governor Ige's 10-point plan as sort of being central to why we sit here discussing decommissioning. I think for those of us who have been involved in, not just with the board, but with Mauna Kea and matters in general, I think when Governor came out with his 10-point plan, we were all sort of a little flabbergasted, more than a little flabbergasted, because it sort of came out of the blue. But it is what it is, and it established, in a sense, a policy, that direction that we had to move, we meaning the university. I think one of the challenges with decommissioning is, and the selection of the specific observatories, as Doug knows, as a director of an observatory, is these observatories have valid legal leases, subleases, to be up there. that terminate in 2033. And so the idea of just basically picking and choosing, well, we don't want this one, we don't want this one, we don't want this one, provides some legal challenges for the university and quite frankly for the state. So it's not as simple as saying, well, let's keep this one and not that one. So the commitment has been made by the university to decommission 5. 3 of those 5 are the ones are owned by university. Those are the ones that we can control and have some say over. And unfortunately, Hoku-kea is one of them. So I, for one, want to support the students as well. But we find ourselves in a position where, yeah, we've had to decouple the decommissioning of Hoku-kea from the relocation of a new Hoku-kea, or whatever it ends up being called. But that's sort of the reality of sort of how sites have been selected at this point in time. The other thing I would say is that it has been contemplated in previous master plans that there would be an educational telescope at Halepohaku. So it's not unheard of that putting the telescope that now sits in a warehouse there would be certainly consistent with previous master plans. So I just wanted to add that to the thinking.
Thank you. Procedurally, this notice of intent to decommission goes.
It's on, but you don't right into it.
Thank you. This notice of intent to decommission goes where?
Once the Mauna Kea Management Board approves the notice of intent, then it allows the university to move forward with the decommission process. And so the next step would be for the development of site plan, a site decommissioning plan, which would include environmental due diligence, such as an EA. And we've already been informed by the Department of Land and Natural Resources that decommission will require an environmental assessment. And then following that, it would be and it would take into account the various scenarios as to what degree the structures would be removed, whether it's full removal, partial removal, and to what degree the site would be restored. And all of those would be taken into account, and the impacts of those various alternatives would be reviewed and disclosed in an environmental assessment. And a preferred action then would be selected in the EA. And following that, the university would move forward with a conservation district use application with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So it's just it's an official, it doesn't necessarily go anywhere other than the fact that we would notify DLNR. And because the NOI was submitted in 2016, we had already forwarded to DLNR. So that is a step that's already been done. But if it hadn't, then we would have notified DLNR that the NOI was approved and we're moving forward with decommissioning.
And a deferral
If the decision to defer, then the university would not be able to move forward pursuant to the decommissioning plan with the actual removal and the starting of the whole environmental assessment process.
I have a question. So listening to what Doug has to say, Julie and Greg, is the notice of intent to decommission, can it be coupled with a recommendation to move forward with a new telescope for for educational purposes for students at Halepohaku, or do you have to look at it separately? Because I hear very clearly that we need, it's not going to pass number one. Number two, I think because it was deferred 3 years ago and there has really been no progress, I'm wondering, is there a way of going back to, the board and the Board of Regents, really, to say that considering an intent to decommission needs to be included with efforts to move forward with a new telescope, and, so that there's no misunderstanding. It really, I think, should have another name so that people can keep Hoku Kea as one telescope and name a new one. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to move forward unless we provide more direction to the regents.
So I believe at that point, the regents would have to determine how they fulfill the requirements by the governor relative to TMT and the decommissioning of X number of telescopes. There's 5 members here, and people keep talking about 4 votes, and that's because as a regent, I don't get to vote on matters for MKMB.
So, if the installation or the location of Hoku Kea at or the new telescope, the new teaching telescope at Halipohaku, that's separate from the decommissioning process. And if if University of Hawaii Hilo, and this is just my thinking, is that if University of Hawaii Hilo wanted to go forward with that, I think they can do that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to decommissioning. That's my thinking. Because the decommissioning plan obviously did not think about the possibility of taking one and putting one up. So that's installing or asking for the permission to put a new telescope would really be a separate process from decommissioning.
Our role as a member of this board is to advise the Board of Regents with regards to actions that need to be taken or what they would like us to look at. In this particular situation, my advice as a board member is that there be an alternative developed that included supporting students who would like to use Hoku Kea or another site prior to notice of intent or the board approving the decommission. Like Greg, I also am weary with regards to if it disappears, nothing will happen. And that would be an injustice to the students that we should be supporting.
Oh, you mean Doug?
I mean, sorry. What did I call you? Sorry, Doug. Sorry, Doug.
So do we take a vote? Or is anyone ready to put forth the motion? So I've heard a call for the vote. Is everybody ready? Is there a second? Julie seconds. So do we want, the motion is to vote on the notice of decommission. Right? That's exactly what no, I think we're going to take the vote, and based on the vote, it's going to be clear what the message is going to be. So I have a call for the vote and a second. Is there any opposition or more discussion? No?
Just to be clear, sorry, Chair. The vote is to approve the notice of intent.
Correct. The motion is to approve the notice of intent, which was being recommended to the board by the Office of Mauna Kea Management. Clear? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. One aye. Any opposed? Opposed. One opposed, one abstain, one approved. And I oppose. But I would like to, if this is all right with the board, to qualify that vote with a message that there needs to be resolution to the educational telescope on Mauna Kea. I personally will say that I agree with Julie and Doug that it's not if there's going to be a telescope, it is where it's going to be. And we need to have that in place to move forward. So is there any more discussion, or do you want to add anything more to that, to my comment?
No. I think this gives a strong message for Wayne to take back to the Board of Regents and back to being.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. Let's move to the next item.